Former Trump advisor Roger Stone has been caught on a recording. We already saw the reporting on this, but now we actually have the audio of this exchange, planning, requesting the assassination of two Democratic congresspeople, specifically Jerry Nadler and Eric Swalwell. Obviously, this didn't take place, but pretty frightening stuff. I'll show you this audio. It's coming from Mediaite reporting. First, let me read a little bit of the context. The conversation Mediaite reports, which can be heard above, was between Stone and his associate Sal Greco, who at the time served as both an NYPD officer and security for the longtime political operative and confidant to Donald Trump. During the discussion, Stone speaks with Greco about assassinating two prominent House Democrats, Jerry Nadler and Eric Swalwell. With that being said, take a look at this.
You can follow either Swalwell or Nadler has to die before the election. They need to get the message.
Either Swalwell or Nadler need to die before the election, he says. They need to get the message.
Diana Falzone, senior media reporter for Mediaite.com. Now, earlier this week, I published a piece for Mediaite about longtime Trump ally Roger Stone talking about assassinating two members of Congress. Roger Stone spoke with Cop Pal about assassinating Eric Swalwell and Jerry Nadler. In the story, I reported that Stone was caught on tape discussing the prospect of assassinating the two House Democrats with an associate named Sal Greco, a now former NYPD cop who worked for Stone on the side. Now, since the story was published, Stone has vehemently challenged our reporting, writing in a post on social media, quote, "I never spoke about assassinating anyone. Fake Mediaite can't produce the recording they claim to have." Well, we do indeed have the recording, and we're going to play it for you now. Before we do, a quick note that this audio has been lightly edited to protect the identity of our source. But here is Roger Stone speaking to his associate Sal Greco at Cafe Europa in Fort Lauderdale weeks before the 2020 election.
Your piece there, I'm gonna go find Swalwell and get this over with. It's time to do it now. Then we'll see how brave the rest of them are. You can follow either Swalwell or Nadler has to die before the election. They need to get the message. And just not putting up with this again.
Our source told us that this was not a one-off conversation, nor was it in jest. Our source told us Stone was talking about taking specific actions on these plans. Quote, "Roger spent election day and the months prior calling for acts of violence. It was definitely concerning that he was constantly planning violence with an NYPD officer and other militia groups." In addition to his social media post, Stone denied ever making these comments in a statement to Mediaite prior to our publishing the story. He told us, quote,
So Roger Stone comes out and says fake Mediaite, saying there's a recording of me talking about assassinating Jerry Nadler and Eric Swalwell. That's ridiculous, and it's proof, essentially, that it's ridiculous that they won't release the audio. Well, they released it. And according to the source, this wasn't a one-off. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't just chest beating. This was something he was repeatedly discussing. Again, a Trump advisor. And so a few things to go through on this, starting out with, this serves as yet another reminder of, yes, Trump is a huge threat to the stability of our country, to our democracy specifically. He threatens to do so many dangerous things if he gets a second term. But don't forget that also the people he chooses to surround himself with are horrible. So that's important to keep in mind as well. And this is not a one-off. This is a part of a broader picture and something that's really concerning right now as it pertains to violent rhetoric, violent intentions, violence within our political process in this current moment as we head toward the 2024 election. Here's this headline from the Washington Post: violent political threats surge as 2024 begins, haunting American democracy. I'll remind you of this being reported on from NPR. A scary survey finding 4 in 10 Republicans say political violence may be necessary. The Guardian reports on a recent Trump remark. There will be bedlam in the United States if criminal cases deny Donald Trump a White House return, said the former president who incited the deadly January 6th attack on Congress, but who is the clear frontrunner for the Republican nomination this year. And as was noted there, when thinking about right-wing political violence, January 6th comes to mind very prominently. And it's important that we call out the fact that in the United States, political violence disproportionately is coming from the right. Right-wing political violence is far more common than left-wing political violence, as is shown by this Anti-Defamation League analysis that we've gone over in the past when analyzing politically motivated murders from 2012 to 2021. 75% of them were right-wing ideologies of some kind. You have white supremacy, 55%, anti-government, 14%, other right-wing, 6%, and then the others listed below. Left-wing is 4%. 4%. So that has to be called out. Very notable. 75% of politically motivated murders associated with right-wing ideologies. That is stark for sure. And I tried to present those very numbers to prominent Trump ally and right-wing figure, far-right figure, Loomer, during our interview a few months back, and it didn't go well. Take a look at the Capitol.
I support American patriots. I think that the January 6th political prisoners are patriots. I think that we should honor them and recognize them.
But what were you going to say about Merrick Garland?
I think that Merrick Garland is a domestic terrorist in the way that he's trying to terrorize people, and he's trying to hunt down parents at school board meetings for simply addressing issues of their own children's public safety.
But
for
you know
going
that
after
you know
conservative Americans.
You know that's not actually what that was, though, right?
That is what he did, though.
No, during that
he
same
had a memo.
During the same, yes, the memo
in which
was
he said that these parents were domestic terrorists
the
and that they
ones
needed
who were
to monitor.
no, not just
the
those
ones who did what?
Not the ones who were just going and sharing their views, but the concern with school board members during this heated time, because I think it was kind of the COVID like intense time where school board members, elected officials were getting death threats from individuals who were unhappy about their governance. That's the concern of law enforcement for sure, but not just individuals sharing their views at school board meetings.
They think that people who go to school boards are domestic terrorists. They think that white, conservative, Christian Americans are the biggest terrorism threat in this country. That's what Merrick Garland said. So apparently all these cartels coming across our border right now, bringing fentanyl and killing people, and all these, Chinese individuals that are assisting the cartels in manufacturing and shipping fentanyl to America that's killing thousands of people every single year in our country. Those people aren't terrorists, but white Christian conservative Americans are. It's just you can see why people are so upset and so divided in our country.
I will eat my microphone on a live stream if you can find a single quote or a single bit of evidence that shows Merrick Garland saying that white Christian Americans are domestic terrorists.
He said that the biggest terrorism threat in our country is white domestic terrorism. We don't have a white supremacy crisis in this country.
Do you know what percentage of domestic terrorist attacks or domestic terrorist, I should say, politically motivated murders, what percentage of those were white supremacists?
How many?
55%.
Okay, and compare that with the overall murder rate in our country. How many murders that took place were actually politically motivated murders? Okay,
you're
compared
right.
to
politically
how many
motivated
murders take place with black on black crime.
Politically
how much murder
motivated.
Takes place?
That's just separate from what we're talking about. Politically
but
motivated.
It's not though. That you see that the way they use these terms to try to say things that are not true. They say that the biggest terrorism threat in our country is white supremacy.
They say
it's not. When
so.
You look
The
at
definition
the amount of deaths,
the definition of domestic terrorism is a very particular definition based on politically motivated actions, attacks, murders. And so, when looking at stats on that, he's just stating a fact that politically motivated attacks are disproportionately white supremacists.
But it's not true though.
So clearly, she wasn't super excited about accepting the data on that subject. And there it is. Former Trump advisor Roger Stone caught on a recording trying to facilitate the assassination of two Democratic Congress people, then for whatever reason deciding not to follow through on it. Super frightening, and frightening the right-wing political violence that is definitely an issue in the United States. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel.